Welcome to the Townsend Board of Selectmen's meeting for November 14th, 2017 at approximately 6 p.m. I'd like to call the meeting to order and a roll call.
Sulicio present.
Gordon Clark present.
And Cindy King is present. Could you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the meeting is being tape recorded, and is there anyone else that is tape recording the meeting tonight? All right. Chairman's additions and deletions. I'm deleting section 5.2, which was one of my updates, and we're revising 4.4 to include 4.4.1, which is regarding holiday, the Thanksgiving holiday, it looks like.
I just separated out one of the places for licensing for separate vote.
4.1 is the holiday. 4.4.1 is a renewal application. Okay, never mind. Sorry, got it. All these numbers. All right. So, start with appointments and hearings. Votes may be taken. 6 p.m. we have review and discuss the warrant for the special town meeting with the FinCom.
Madam Chair. Does everybody on the FinCom have a copy of the draft warrant?
Yes.
Wonderful. And everybody at the board has their copy? All right. The warrant closed last Thursday, because we weren't here Friday. And there have been a couple of edits that have been made to the document as recently as this afternoon. So what we all have is not likely yet the final. After this discussion, there is one that's on my screen, and if it's the wish of the board, will be printed and made real. But we'll go through that as we get to those specific places. When you look at a warrant like this, you see there are only 9 articles. You might wonder, why are we going through the effort of having a special town meeting with only 9 articles? One of the articles in here about the police department budget is what is driving the need to have a special town meeting. So when I get to that, I'll key you all in. But in case you're wondering, again, for 9 articles why we're doing this, I'll make that clear when we get there. The first article is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available funds $23,000 to replenish the FY18 Finance Committee Reserve Fund. So again, you had originally submitted for 14, and then there was a meeting where you granted the planning board 8 just last week because they were on a tight timeline to be able to secure somebody to do the master plan work. They originally had an article on the warrant for 8,000. So as of this morning, that 8,000 article disappeared, and that 8 is now being added into this to cover for your reserve. So you gave 14 off to the town clerk for elections that hadn't been planned, and then 14 plus the 8 get you where you need to be. Article 2, to see if the town will vote to appropriate from free cash $14,000 to enroll one of our 4 full-time personnel to attend paramedic school. This comes in from the fire chief, and his discussion with me on the matter was that we had normally been hiring people who are already, as full-timers, that are already medics. They've already done a certification on their own, and he's suggesting that it's been harder to find full-time medics to come, so he wants to take one of our existing full-timers who has an interest, and he believes the ability, and send him to paramedic school. Whether that's a good idea or a bad idea is nothing that I'm going to comment on this evening. The one thing that I can say, though, that I expressed to the chief, is this is a unionized position, so this would be a matter of collective bargaining. You can't present a benefit to someone within a union without having first negotiated it. Even if you're doing something nice, you still have to go through the process at the table. So for that purpose, I would think that we might want to not go down the road with this unless and until we've done that. I have seen situations where you try to do something nice, and a group of, not these guys, but another group of people might say, well, if there's not 14,000 coming to me, then I'm going to vote no. So you never know how these things can trend, but we should be starting at the table And if we get through the table and there's a need, then we should be looking for funding.
In the past, we've not paid for this.
Correct.
And we've had paramedics, I can think of one in particular, who has gotten education on their own and come on here. I can also think of several times in the past when we gave schooling to people, it happened to be on the fire department, not paramedic training though. And they upped and left just as soon as they got the training. I personally can't support this unless there's some kind of an agreement that they would commit to staying so many times, so many years, or if they can't make the grade, if they flunk out of the course, then they pay us back.
Yeah.
You know, some sort of contingency. It's just too open-ended to just do it the way it is.
And to your point, Andrea, those would be the things you would negotiate.
Yes,
As a part
that's
of,
what I was
as a
going
part
to
of
ask
the
you
collective
about.
bargaining, you would say things like, you get a grade of B or better, or you maintain a passing, whatever the terms are you come to, they get codified in a document signed by the parties. Now, there is an issue, and I know Gordy would be familiar with it, about requiring people to stay a certain period of
There's
time.
case law.
There's the 13th Amendment to the Constitution on slavery. I mean, it gets in the way of doing things like that sometimes. So there is case law that says you can't make somebody
You have to go
stay.
that far.
But that's what it runs back to.
Right.
Well, then, if that's true, and I believe that, then that goes back to my point that they should afford their own schooling. Nobody put my husband through college.
Madam Chairman? if I could
Nobody got his schooling. He got it for himself and then got a good job.
Madam Chairman, and to the Finance Board here, just to cut to the chase, as you probably know, by unanimous vote twice, I'm taking care of with Mr. Crowell on negotiations. I will tell you this, that we spent a lot of time, and if we do it, it'll be done correctly, but there is case law around the entire that we were talking about can't be done, but there's other ways to do it, but this is not the place for strategy to talk about that. The only thing I would ask for the rest of the board here is that Mr. Crowler reach out to the only union that who does not have a contract at this time, to tell them that it would be in their benefit. It's highly unusual for a union who has been without a contract not to notify us. They have to notify us that they want to negotiate. So I'm not going to get into that, but I would just ask Mr. Crowler to remind them that why you're not coming to the table, because there may not be money for that and other things. So that's all I'll say on that, because I think we're not giving up any strategy at this time.
Yeah, and just my own experience, I was on the ambulance, of course, and we didn't have, when I was on, first we had no advance, then when a few of us got our intermediate, it was a reimbursement, but at that time it was $750. That was our reimbursement for going to intermediate school. And then when, I don't even know if they paid if the town paid anything for the paramedics. It was probably a reimbursement, and it might have been a $1,500 reimbursement back then. But at most places that I've worked, there's usually some kind of contractual agreement, with whether there's a union or not, but a contractual agreement to say, okay, if you're working for this company, if you will, and you want to take a course, there's a policy. It's not just we've identified a person, we want to send them off to paramedic school, but we have a policy where we'll send you to paramedic school, we'll pay this much per year, and this is what we want in return. Or we'll reimburse you for your expenses over a period of 5 years. So in order to get all your money back, you're going to have to stay here 5 years to get your money. I mean, there's, which goes to, where we do have a union, it would be back to the simple part of having it part of a union. Yes, Andrea?
How long is the course? Is it 2 years?
It's hours.
I believe
not
it's
years,
two,
hours.
if you're going to stop what you're doing, I believe, unless it's
2,000
changed,
hours.
it's 2 years, and that doesn't count taking all your testing.
Okay, well then instead of 14, would we need 28?
This doesn't say.
Yeah.
This just talks about enrolling. This could be the application. I'm sure that the intent here.
Regardless, even if
I don't think we should even go in.
right, if the article made the warrant, and if town meeting said yes, we still couldn't use it without bargaining.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
So
'Cause
in
this
other
just says
words-
14,000 to enroll. That could be the application fee, which I don't think that's true. I think I'm wrong on that.
So, Process question, please. We're going through the warrant. If we don't want this to be on the warrant, is it the board's discretion whether or not to put that on there?
You received a legal opinion from David back in 13, I believe. I have it actually on my desk that said that it is, actually it was Kay Doyle, excuse me. It was Kay Doyle that wrote it, saying that it is the board's prerogative to allow articles to stay or not, because it's the select board's warrant.
So does that mean we can take it off?
Yes.
And that's what, rather than argue about it on town floor, because it doesn't really sound like that's the place for it.
Right.
My suggestion is, my tendency is to say, let's not even put it on there, and maybe Mr. Kreidler handle it offline.
As a negotiation.
If it comes up as negotiation, that's fine, but then we have a means to have the discussions,
Right.
at least. So, do you want a motion?
I think as we go through, you can either do it at the end or each one as we go, whatever your
Well,
pleasure.
We only have 9. You want to
let's just do one at a time.
One at a time?
Yeah.
It's not-
So I would move that the board vote not to put Article 2 as written on the warrant.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Is that 2 or 4?
Article 2.
Article 2.
Is it,
Article,
What are you working off of there?
I thought Article 2 is $8,000 to process the update.
Yeah, see that?
Flip to the,
I have the wrong one as well. Here, wait a minute.
What?
Article 2.
I'm updating the master.
It just seems it was the board.
Okay, Jim?
So 14,000,
It got changed, Cindy. Yeah, the one that was in our packet. It's
I
not.
misplaced my packet.
So is 2 the right one, Mr. Crowley?
Here you go.
So as far as the process procedure,
It's
fire
2.
chief would have to go to the union, and the union comes to us for
No, the
negotiation.
union would make a proposal. They'd send, as Gordy was saying, they would send a letter saying that we'd like to reopen negotiations, which they're ready for. That could happen today. As one of their proposals, they could propose, we would like this additional benefit. So it would be in that type of a discussion that this would be taken care of. We're really going backwards doing it.
I don't think it would be an
funding
article.
Right. But with all due respect,
It'd be part of
everybody here,
negotiations and then
And then
the less we
contract.
talk about this, the better our strategy is
Yeah,
to represent the people.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to get
No, I
the
know.
process
I
done.
don't think we're going to be...
We'll be at the table.
in the-
What I can assure you is that we're on top of it as far as what's allowed by law, case law, and everything. We're on top of it big time.
We will not be seeing it in this format again.
That's right.
Right,
So,
that's right.
but it will be addressed if they want it to be.
And I'd like to highlight for the record, that was a unanimous vote.
Yes.
Yes,
They're just fun when we get those.
yes.
So then you get to the next page, Article 3. This is the reason for the town meeting. Article 3 says, to see if the town will vote to reduce the fiscal year 18 police department personnel budget by $40,000 or take any other action related thereto. The correct number, as of this morning from the town accountant, is $44,000. And before the world goes into panic about reducing the police department budget, as a part of the fiscal 18 budget, the school department was giving the town $80,000. And that $80,000 was buying a school resource officer. So we would have one of our staff members working in the school, and they'd pay the bill. We have $36,000 of that money realized. The additional $44,000 we are not going to realize during this fiscal year, specifically because the person who was doing that work is no longer working in the school. So if we're not giving them the service, they're obviously not giving us the money.
Right.
So the Department of Revenue, when we did our year-end close, brought this to the town accountant's attention and said, if you're relying on $80,000 in revenue and you're not going to be getting it, you should really clean this up. So she puts forth this article to reduce the budget by $44,000 because we're not going to be getting that $44,000 from the schools. The obvious follow-up question is, well, what about that guy or gal? How are we going to pay them if we're not getting the money that we're counting on? And the fact is that it works out that that person, for a period of 6 months, will not be working. So there is no salary due to that person So the reason the person's not in the school and we're not getting the money is because the person's not working for a period of time.
Is that person coming in?
That person is coming back, and we expect that next year and next budget, next year and next budget, we'll be back where we were, but for this period of time, we need to make it square.
Mayor?
Yeah, that's my first time saying that out loud, so I'm looking for criticism.
Well, if they're going to be gone for 6 months, what happens to the next 6 months?
There's only 6 months left in the fiscal year.
But
Okay,
we're
so
not
you're
taking
going-
his whole salary out of the budget, we're only taking $40,000 off.
The position will be funded fully next year.
Okay.
I think I have it. Because I was looking at the revenue numbers, and we had counted $80,000 in
Correct.
revenue.
Correct.
For that position.
Correct.
Now, we need to adjust it because we're not getting that 80,000 in revenue.
Because we're not providing the
But you
service.
can't adjust the revenue number, even
Right.
though you know it needs to be changed, right?
Correct.
You need to take it from someplace so you can have a balanced budget.
Correct. We know we're not getting the revenue, so technically, the budget is out of balance by $44,000.
And we don't want that to happen.
Because we know we've not given the service for which we get the money back.
Okay, but it's not going to hurt
No,
what the police are doing.
absolutely not.
It's fine.
It does not change boots on the ground in any fashion whatsoever from what we are today.
So if we could have, we would have just reduced it on the revenue side and everything would have been balanced at the beginning.
Right. If we knew that in the beginning, we wouldn't have budgeted the position for the full 12 months, nor would we have counted on getting revenue for the full 12 months. We'd have had them both be 6 months, so
Yeah, I'm
balanced.
off on the timeline, but, okay, as long as this is to balance it and it's not going to hurt anything because we don't have that position
Correct.
right now. Okay. I'm good with it then.
Okay. Finance Committee,
Got it.
poke at me a bit. Andrea,
I'm sorry.
any,
Okay with it?
Yeah, I'm okay with this, yeah.
Do you need a motion?
I think if you're going to take something off,
I think the ones that we're just
leave,
okay
just
with,
leave, and then you'll
vote
approve
on
it.
then.
Yes.
Try and keep it
We need
moving.
Just if we're going to take something off, then
That's fine.
Yeah,
so we don't lose track with the...
Yes.
We need a motion.
Okay.
Go ahead.
We make a motion.
Make a motion, we take the 44,000 off of the police budget.
To approve the article as presented.
Approve the article as presented. Thank you.
Easier.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So then, if I may, at town meeting then, this one would be down as Finance Committee recommend?
Yes.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right, Article 4, prior fiscal year bills. At a special town meeting, this requires a 9/10 vote. So it's, for all intents and purposes, everybody in the room is going to say yes. You have 11 bills, 2 of which are not police department. They are numbers 10 and 11. Virtual Town Hall, that is the website. We had a conversion take place in June, and there were 2 payments. One was the quarterly payment, the other was for the actual conversion. The bill for the conversion did not get paid in the month of June, which puts it in the prior fiscal year. So that's that $1,667. P. Davis Emergency Services, which is the other non-police, is when we had the sewer backup last spring, and that bill was kicking around for a period of time, didn't know if it was an insurance claim or where. It's now been squared away that this is the amount of money that's due that service when they came in and cleaned up the sewage in the downstairs. The remaining ones, numbers 1 through 9, are police. They go back to fiscal 15 in 2 cases, and as recent as last fiscal year 17, with the majority of them being fiscal year 16. And what Chief Bailey has figured out or come across is that there was a stack of bills that were in a desk drawer that had never been submitted. While we're talking about that, we're also realizing a roughly $80,000 hit against or deduction on our free cash that we're expecting to have certified from DOR because there was revenue that had been anticipated for details in fiscal 17 that had been realized by the town in checks, but had never been brought from the police station over to the treasurer's office. So we'll get that 80,000 in fiscal 18, but by practice, they deduct that from our free cash for 17, because even though we had it in hand, it never made it through the books. So those are a couple issues that Chief Bailey has put policy in place with the new admin person about the necessity for regular and timely turnovers of checks that are received, because apparently that hadn't happened.
How did the payroll thing happen?
I'm sorry?
How would the payroll thing have happened? I mean, that's not like a bill that was stuck in a
Payroll?
drawer or
I
something.
missed something.
I thought you said that, well, it details.
Oh, well, that's the other thing that Gordy and I talked about, is every place I've ever been, if you work a detail, you don't get paid until the company has paid the town.
Okay.
The way it's done here is you work a detail, the town bills out the company, Unitil or whoever it is, whether they've paid or not, in your next check, you get your detail pay. So we end up serving as a bank, in essence, which is really not a good practice to be in, so that's something that we're actually, this is brought to light. I wasn't aware of that, so we'll be addressing that issue.
Is that another contract thing?
No, this would be a management right issue.
Okay, we're going to be changing the
Fixing
policy
it,
with...
fixing
okay.
it. Because if a contractor goes bankrupt, contractor refuses to pay, the taxpayer shouldn't be on the hook
Right.
for that private detail. Yeah.
So the guy who said, yes, I'll take that detail, is really kind of at the mercy of
The company paying.
the company that's paying him, huh?
Well,
Is that-
Which is the standard.
Because they're not working for us, they're working for them.
Yeah, I hear you.
It's a weird thing, because we're just facilitating a private service. You know, we get a 2%, I think it's a 2%.
10%, I think.
Is it 10?
Yeah.
10, so we get, it used to be 2. We get a 10% admin piece for coordinating all of that. But we shouldn't be in a position of floating 80 grand, because something like this can happen.
And we shouldn't have checks sitting in the drawer.
No.
Bill.
Bills.
No,
Bills.
these were checks.
These are
Bills were
These
these,
are actual checks.
but then we had checks paid for details that weren't turned in, so we've got, you know, 10 grand in bills that didn't get
Sitting in
paid,
a desk
and 80 grand in
I
checks.
thought you said that they got paid, and then,
These are bills. These are bills that were sitting in a desk.
yeah, but the
I don't know if is this
80,000.
the same desk drawer?
Yes.
The same desk drawer had
Well, the same desk,
13,000 in bills and $80,000.
Plus they had a revolving count, plus the 10% over the last, how many years that they've gone through.
so
That's for another time.
this has been brought to our attention now by Lori, the town accountant. DOR has said we're going to get spanked and they're going to hit us for the 80 against our free cash. We'll see it again, just so people know it's not lost to us forever. It rolls now as revenue because it's been deposited in fiscal 18, so we'll catch it on this year, but it's just not a good place to be, so.
Another question? When auditors come in and do the audit, they don't catch things like that?
They don't look for things.
Well, part of the misconception with our annual audit is that they look at and touch everything, and they don't. They look at the balance sheet, they look at that you've reconciled cash to make certain that there are no discrepancies between, you know, what your accountant is saying and your treasurer is saying.
So you're balancing.
But, yeah, they're not looking, other than every year, they will pick, you know, a dozen or so specific things to look at. So it may be we're going to look at police details this year, they would have caught it. They apparently haven't looked at that, at least in the last 2 years, where this has gone on. So these would require a 9/10 vote.
Andrew's got her hand up.
I'm sorry.
You said that they were paid for the detail work.
Correct.
From where?
Overtime.
So then, that's what I would assume.
Sure.
So then when the detail money comes in, it will go into overtime?
No.
No, there's
It will go into detail work, even though the money that it's supposed to cover has already been paid out.
Correct.
yeah, general fund, right?
Yeah, it would be a general fund revenue. So basically, you're chasing it a year after to begin with.
Right.
Oh, yes, I know
It's
that.
not the same year. So it's easily, you've already funded, you've estimated your salary for what your overtime's going to be, which includes details, but the
Well, it
money coming
shouldn't.
back is...
It shouldn't. That's how it's been done. It should be,
Supposed to be in a revolving
Right.
account.
But it's, we don't...
Overtime and details are never supposed to touch each other. And one should actually, if it's man, I'm not gonna get into this because I don't think it's a place, that revolving account should actually be making the town money.
10%.
10%. So if you go over 10 years, if, just say every year you're adding 10,000, if you do 100,000 in details, all right? All that reserve's gone. That's all I'll say at this point. Yes.
It's not working like it should, but it is
Never seen
being
it anywhere
changed.
else in my history.
Do we have any concerns about any other checks?
No. No. The place has been turned upside down.
Oh,
Everyone's been asked.
that's about that guy that they had to put down. And he's...
I should probably talk to you offline, but if we've got $80,000 in checks in the drawer, and we have an unusual way of accounting for this money,
Large animal.
do we know that all the details that have been paid to the town, that the checks have actually made it to the account? The
That
overtime has been paid, is there?
reconciliation is something that the town accountant is going to do once we finish the close. It appears that it's not been done in some time. I'm saying that right?
I think there should be an internal audit,
Well, and that's why, as Gordy said,
Our
there
details
usually
over the
is
last
just
few
one
years.
account that you look at. You're not usually
but
seeing it.
internally, not, yeah.
Right, you're not
Okay.
usually seeing it bled between two
Two
places.
separate houses, they're never supposed to mix.
Right, but they clearly have been.
Well,
Supposedly, I mean, I'm just...
Not- not
concerned if we've got-
They have, they have.
We've got bills and checks and desk drawers. Anyway, we'll talk later.
Okay. Any other questions on 9/10 vote for prior year fiscal bills?
Yeah, I'm just
What they are?
not sure what these are.
Okay. Richard Cowell Tactical is for a custom, they're not called bulletproof vests, but for lay people like me, bulletproof vest for someone who used to work for us. Comcast is a bill that is currently under dispute, and the town accountant believes that at a minimum $800 of that is a mistake on Comcast's part, recognizing that you never beat Comcast. We're asking for the full bill to be paid, and if we get the credit on it, then we get the credit on it. Zoll Medical, those are for pieces of equipment to refurbish. Who told me what they were? They were the defibs, I think. They were pads and batteries for our defibrillators,
Oh, yeah.
portable ones.
the portables.
Okay.
PowerPhone is a piece of dispatch communications equipment for which there's a bill. McGee Equine, that's, you may remember town meeting 2 years ago when in the middle of town meeting, the buzz around the room was that a pig had just attacked somebody.
Yep.
This is the guy that actually euthanized the pig on behalf of the ACO and just never got paid. So he's been chasing that for 2 years.
Can you go
Axon,
back to the power phone?
Sure.
What did you say that was?
I tried not to say a lot because I don't know.
Oh,
How's that? I know it's a subscription inside of the dispatch center
okay.
that they get trained on. That's about the extent of my knowledge there. Municipal Police Institute is some training that was done and policies that were put in place. MPI is it's universal throughout the state. That's where departments get their policies and procedures. Verizon is, again, when you look now, that is 3 fiscal years worth of bills. How it is that we hadn't been shut off, if there were 3 years of bills hanging out there, I don't know.
Now, is this just for the police?
These are just police, correct?
Cell phones, I believe, to clarify.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Is this just a regular account like everybody else has for their cell phones and stuff?
I don't know if it's cell or if it's landlines.
I'm sorry.
All I know is that it's,
It was a landline. It evidently was going to a post office box, right, Chief, that nobody was aware of, and then when the post office box closed, because obviously it wasn't the bill.
We didn't pay that either.
The bill started going back, and then they contacted us. So was it a fax line?
It was an alarm, alarm type line.
It was an alarm type line?
Correct.
So we were paying some of our,
Yeah,
Yes.
this was on its own bill by itself, which is kind of strange, but...
oh,
So this is like the $30 monthly charge over 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, so it's been disconnected now?
It has been.
Okay.
And I apologize, I didn't recognize Chief Bailey with his beard back there, so.
Which he's doing for a good cause.
Is that part of that beard thing? Can I?
Beard thing.
The beard thing, yes.
Yes, well, are we going to hear about that? Yes, okay.
Actually, take a second. I mean, people in the department, what are they doing?
Members of the department have asked to participate. There's a national police effort this time of year in November. It's called a number of different things, Movember, No Shave November, and it's geared towards raising money for charities. The national charity I think is a cancer charity. We've elected to keep our money local, and we're donating the money. We're each paying $100 to grow our beards, and we're donating the money to NM Cares. We're also putting something weekly. We'll be putting our faces on our Facebook, asking people if they like it, if they dislike the bid, and they want to donate money to NM Cares, and we'll put that officer's name on the check. That would be awesome. They can give those checks to us, and we'll get them to NM Cares. And quite personally, I can't wait till the end of the month.
Oh, it's only 1 month?
1 month, that's enough.
Thank you, Chief.
Any other questions on prior year bills? Yeah, get that one first, all right. All right, so moving on to Article 5, Capital Plan. Each year when the free cash has been certified, another question?
No, we're talking about ourselves.
I think we need to make a
Yeah.
motion on it.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So I had- No, you do it this time.
Okay, make a motion to pay the back bill.
I move to pay the
To approve the article, you're not paying the bills.
You approve the article. Yeah.
Unless you want to. You can pay the bills and we could take it right off.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're all set with it.
Thank you.
Yeah, he said yes. I saw him out of the corner of my eye.
Article 5 is a customary one in the special. If free cash has been certified, when you have a special, you take a portion of it. The policies that were put together as a part of the Collins Institute budget plan last year says between $200,000 and $250,000 from free cash each year going into capital stabilization. So this is that. So you would normally see this on a special town meeting like the one we're having now. So we don't yet have free cash certified. Today at the department head meeting, I raised the point with the town accountant that we can't have this special town meeting and do these things if we don't have free cash certified. And she said that they have assured her, DOR has assured her that it will be certified shortly, but definitely before the meeting. The very next article is not usual, nor is it customary. This is seeking to adjust the capital plan mid-year. So at the annual town meeting voted to expend certain dollars from the capital stabilization fund to fund the capital plan for this year that we're halfway through. It was roughly $241,000 worth of things that departments had asked for that the capital planning committee had met. Heard from the departments, had to judge which things were most important and got the money and which ones had to get put off for another year. So that plan is done by policy, by the policy plan once a year. This is unusual because we're not in fiscal 19, next year's planning stage yet. We're still within 18, but these are a couple of things that people deemed were of concern enough that it warranted going to the capital planning committee and asking for consideration to revise 18. So what you'll see in Article 6 are several requests, $25,000, $25,000, $65,000, $10,000, and $15,000. The capital planning committee met earlier this evening, and their article that they're supporting going forward will only involve $25,000 for the repair and/or replacement and any costs associated thereto of certain audiovisual equipment in the meeting room between the library and the senior center, and additionally $25,000 for design, engineering, and replacement of the sidewalks of the town common. So the capital plan amendment that is going forward to the special town meeting at the support of the capital planning committee will be for $50,000 for those two items and nothing more. It's not to say that those other items aren't important that have been asked for, but I think the consensus was that those are items that can find their way through the regular process. It's going to be beginning in earnest next month for consideration at the spring town meeting.
So the reconfiguration is how much?
Reconfiguration says 65, actually putting the phone piece in it, we've most recently learned would have been 75,000.
Right.
I'll talk about that one separately. So that wasn't voted to go through. And when the select board applied for and received consideration under the community compact with Governor Baker and Lieutenant Governor Polito, it gave the town the ability to apply for certain specific grants that aren't available to non-compact communities, one of which is for IT, or management information systems. So there is a grant opening January that the town will be applying for to fund ideally all of, but probably part of this work. So what was decided by the capital planning committee would be to continue as we are right now, which isn't great, but we're not bad. Put the grant together, get the grant submitted, and then between hearing from the grant and getting the warrant together for annual town meeting, reconsider whether this gets put back onto the capital plan proper in the regular course of business for fiscal 19.
Question? Town council didn't have any issue with revising the capital plan? Because I know we've got bylaw and all that involved with...
It's not contemplated, nor is it expressly prohibited.
Okay, so we can do it?
Yeah.
Okay, if we think it's necessary.
It's not great practice. You just...
Yeah.
I mean...
I think it's good that they said no to the others, too.
Yeah.
You know?
And to speak just briefly on the meeting room, this is something that, to the credit of the project, it was presented to the capital planning committee last year. It was believed to be beneath the threshold amount, or less than $10,000, for which the capital plan would have considered it. What we've discovered is that it's a far bigger project than was originally contemplated. The equipment that's there is original to the building. It worked well for a short period of time and not particularly well thereafter, and large parts of it don't work at all now. So they came, to their credit, last year, weren't considered because they didn't think it was going to be expensive enough. It's now at the point where, unlike, you know, if I needed a widget, you know, that only my office is going to use, that's a tough sell to break policy and jump in the middle of the year. But that's a project that library, council on aging, you know, the public generally, I mean, we had the DA there. It would have been great to have the equipment working when she did her presentation. So there are a number of different uses across the community for this type of equipment. So that, those two things, the fact that they were once before the committee and that it's used across the community, I think give it a leg up.
And can somebody talk about the sidewalks?
Certainly. The Cemetery and Parks Commission had put forward the article to consider redoing the sidewalks in the common. Right now, if you frequent the common, you know that there are sections that they've done a good job patching, trying to hold things together, but there are still areas where one of the concrete panels or slabs has raised up. You can catch a toe. You know, you've got kids at, you know, twilight that are running around during the band concerts. You know, God forbid, how many times when you're a kid and you run and you fall, I mean, somebody gets hurt. We have knowledge that the conditions exist. You have elderly folks that are coming to the band concerts as well. So the sidewalks do need repair. This is an amount of money that was calculated by the building commissioner based on what flat concrete work goes for in the region on a square foot or square yard basis. So this is believed to be sufficient to do the interior sidewalks over in total. The discussion at the capital planning committee was whether or not there's benefit in doing a master plan of the park, not master plan townwide, but of the park, that would contemplate not only the sidewalks, but restoration to the gazebo bandstand, consideration to the parking lot in the rear that's currently dust, dirt, or mud, depending on what season you're there, in terms of some pavement, porous, what's the word?
Pavers.
Yeah, pavers that actually have the openings and lets
They are able
pervious.
to-
Pervious. there we go.
Stormwater, they meet, yeah.
Yeah, pervious pavement.
Porous.
Bringing loam in and, doing repair work on the grass, any of the lighting, the water fountain. So master planning, the entire thing would be something to be considered if the Cemetery and Parks Commission wish, going forward into the next master plan for 19. But this actually gets us to...
One other question. This may not be popular, but anyway. There have been people who have said, you know what, we spend money on the grass, or in this case, the sidewalk, but then we allow people to drive their cars on...
You're a mind reader.
And I'm sorry, I know that there's a lot of activities, and I know it's hard when you've got a car loaded up to unload it and bring it into the park, if you will. But we can't keep spending money on refurbishing the common if people insist on driving on it, too.
Roger was here at the Capital Planning Committee, Roger Raposa, the superintendent, and he said that...
And I know that's not popular for me to even say that.
Well,
but I'm
he said
sorry.
it. He said it. So what I'm doing, I'm marrying the two of you together now publicly, because he said that very same thing, but he wasn't on TV like you are. He said that the commission has voted to preclude people from driving in the past, and it gets ignored. And then depending on who it is that's asking, you get a little peer pressure, and then you get people driving. So, you bring the loam up, you get some nice grass, and then it's driven over. You repair a section of sidewalk, and a car goes over it loaded full of stuff, and it cracks.
I remember discussion about that back and forth, and it became extremely political.
Sure. Well, here's the thing.
A few years ago.
If you want to continue being unpopular, here's the answer.
Okay.
At the meeting today, somebody said, well, can the select board do anything? No, the cemetery and parks have care, custody, and control of the common. But the select board could impose a regulation that says no one can drive a vehicle over the sidewalks outside of the common. So unless they can
It's okay with me.
fly over the sidewalk and land in the common, no vehicles can come across.
It's okay with me.
So something to consider.
Tough
We can
love.
discuss that in the future. Not as far as, okay, FinCom wants to...
Madam Chairman?
I got confused. So I'd like to go back just a step. Article 5
Yes.
is to raise the money for capital planning,
Right.
right?
This year's apportionment from free cash.
Right.
Yes.
Of that money, we are now prepared to spend $50,000?
Correct.
All right, then I'm not confused, okay?
Oh, good.
Thank you.
So it's almost like we're taking an advance on what we normally would have spent.
To put the best
In
face on it,
19.
yes.
Okay.
Also, to add to that, don't forget the roots of the trees
Oh, absolutely.
The what?
for the sidewalks.
Oh. We could be
Just
here
not
all night
people-
talking
I'm
about
going to
the
get a lot of phone calls when I get home.
They can't put a gate in.
We can have, we could have a much larger
another piece
conversation
too.
about, did you have something?
I think I do.
Yeah.
Okay, and just help me, because I need help sometimes remembering stuff. But about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, when Carol was on the board, we got the compacts coming best practices. But part of that was, what I'm bringing up here is that we were informed by the state that we get ahead. Well, Jim had written a grant to get us money to do public works jobs. And I'll let him, it's called Safe Roads or something. So all I want to bring up is that maybe we should revisit about applying to maybe fix up the common or the gazebo or something like that in the future. Sorry, I don't mean to throw it to you, but
Actually,
usually...
this is the dance Carolyn and I did at the last meeting where she said, Jim, don't you want to bring up complete streets? And I was like,
Oh, that's what
blank.
it's called. Okay, thank you for that, Carol.
So we talked about that at the department meeting as well, and whether or not We received the second Tier 2.
Tier 2.
The Tier 2 of that Complete Streets grant, which is bringing a consultant in to have community meetings to determine what public works projects are of the most importance in town. It can be things like roads, sidewalks, arguably the sidewalks in the common. It could be something like, walking paths, in town land. It could be the VFW pond. I mean, it could be any number of different things. So one of the things that Gordy's talking about is there may be funding available to do the...
And Jim had put the whole package together, but we didn't have it in time done at that time because of the fiscal year. So he has the skill to do this, that's what I'm trying to say. And the other thing is, I'll let go to Carolyn here because she's much more intelligent. I believe when you travel down 119, folks, at 225, a lot of that came from a similar grant.
Sure.
So all that work is seeing done, so we can bring money back from what started as 3 grants and keep multiplying it. When we have people who have the ability to write these things,
You talking about Four Corners?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, but again, that was similar to that you keep, if you show that you do best practices, we keep on moving up. It's way above my pay grade here, but we have people here who understand this, and I'm just bringing it up so we can encourage them to do that. Carolyn has something that I've been told, and I'll try to be quiet so we can get it done.
Just to explain to the FinCom the Complete Streets, it comes in 3 phases. So the first phase, I don't know if you recall, we sent Ed Kukla to the training, so he's certified, and we had to pass the policy. We passed the policy, got the certification. We're now up and been awarded Tier 2, which was $33,000 training grant. We just formed a working group today as the building commissioner, Mark Mercury of the facilities, the acting
Police chief.
highway, police chief, yes, your deputy nominated you. And one other person. So we're going to be meeting with the engineering and consulting firm to come up with a priority of projects. We're going to review all the sections in town from affordable housing to bike trails to you name it. And then the engineer is charged with coming up with a priority list that goes on file with the state. It's accepted as Townsend's plan for their most desired projects, what they'd like to see happen in their town. That has to be completed by April 1st. Then you apply each year for the funding according to the projects listed in the cost. So that's the Complete Streets program.
On a whole different matter,
Yeah.
that kind of plan, would that add into the new work on the master plan?
Exactly.
They're not, the plans aren't that big. Yes, you'd want your highway input for that, for different projects that year.
There would likely be a sub-component of the master plan that talks about public works projects, and if we already have this recent and live document, that work is already done. It rolls in. The one piece that I'll add to what Carolyn said is, in between the working group compiling a list of things and the consultant preparing the plan and submitting it, there are public sessions where we get in a room like this and we roll out, these are the things that, on a staff level we thought were good, and people either love it or hate it, or we amend it or whatever. It gets kicked around, and then it goes to get finalized and sent up to the state. So the public has the input as well on which things they think should be of a higher priority. But yeah, that would become part of the master plan by reference.
Cindy?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I was just thinking as they were talking about it, because we do have work being done right now on revising the master plan. So maybe for the short term, using the next grant, the next phase is fine, but I think at some point it needs to dovetail so that, because the master plan is the plan and the prioritization for the town. So because we don't have that revised with a recent revision, once that is in place, I'd really like to see those.
Sure. The way you would generally see those married would be just by reference. So you'll have a master plan, and there'll be a chapter or a section on open space, and you will reference your approved open space and recreation plan. So you don't re-master plan the entire issue. You just, by reference, you say this is the document that already lives, it exists. So this would be a very small piece of public works projects. The way I would see it dovetailing would be by reference. This process has already taken place, and it identified these projects as priority for which there'd be funding through Complete Streets. Doesn't mean that's the end of the chapter, It can then be expanded upon any way the town wants to in the planning process, but it shows by reference as something that's already occurred and is real.
Is there anything in the existing master plan that we can draw on
Absolutely.
for now?
Oh, absolutely. That'll be the basis.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of it, I mean, if you read it recently, I think the 09 update, is that the most recent?
No,
No, that was not passed.
I know it wasn't passed, but that was...
Back to the original.
Right, 01 is the plan, but 09, there was some work done.
but they were...
The bulk of that is so outdated now anyway that I'm not certain there's a lot of good data there, but that would definitely be the jumping off point. All right.
Just one quick, master plan is going to be starting very shortly, within the next few weeks.
Hopefully.
No, it will.
Well,
It will.
they gave money to the
okay.
planning board the other night
It's
to
going to.
Oh, good.
hire the consultant.
We hope to have it done, it will be done by June. We've hired this institute that's going to come out, and they're going to be just ours. They're not going to belong to anybody else. So there's been a lot of thought put into this.
Okay, because we have to have meetings and everything else to, public meetings to,
Oh, yeah, they'll be all planned, and there'll be
Okay.
mailings, and there'll be,
that'll be good. We really need to get that going.
very shortly.
That's for another time.
Yeah. All right,
Okay. So
next item.
I think we were
So,
finishing up
We're
Article
okay
6.
with 5, and I'm okay with 6 with the other...
Capital plan
crossed out.
amendments, yep.
Okay.
Okay, then Article 7, we get into Home Rule Charter article
You
that
guys
comes
want to
in.
vote on those for your committee? Whether or not you're recommending 5 and 6?
I thought they
But they
did.
did.
Oh, did they?
5 we did, we didn't do 6.
So 6 would be as amended to include just the AV and sidewalks.
50,000.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Somebody make a motion? Yeah. I'll make a motion that we take the $50,000 from the article number 6 and be recommended by FinCom.
Okay. He seconded. All in favor?
Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you. Article 7, Home Rule Charter. This is something that the language comes in from council. The current state law that describes how elections and appointments to housing authorities are conducted doesn't agree with our charter language. So this is council's recommendation to make the two work together. So it's, obviously, we're not going to change the general law, so we'll change our charter to make it consistent. So this language that follows after the underlined an act relative to the charter of the town of Townsend, that subsection 3-15A talks about how the Housing Authority Board is comprised.
Cindy, any question? When we make changes like this to the charter, I think the last one, or one of the last ones we made was the town collector became a town collector rather than a tax collector. It's important to note that these don't actually get incorporated into the charter language. They're more like amendments to the
You become a
charter.
special act until you rewrite the entire
Right.
charter.
Okay.
Well, I mean, the recall provision actually is one
Yes.
that is, everybody's
So
looked at
until we
recently, is a
do...
separate.
Until we do a revision of the charter and pull this stuff in,
It just shows as
it's separate.
an amendment to.
Okay.
Any additional questions on that one? Finance Committee, any questions on that one?
It doesn't have any money on it.
The Finance Committee, because it isn't a monetary article, really doesn't have an opinion, so I'm just curious. I thought that charter revisions had to be advertised and you had to have hearings and things. I couldn't believe there was no cost in money. She said about the tax collector treasurer, but actually that thing had begun, the process,
Sure.
years and years and years and years and years ago. We had to go through the state to get that changed.
Well, that's what this is.
This does as well. This goes to town meeting and then gets submitted to the legislature.
And there's no advertising we have to do for the public.
Other than the posting of the town meeting, no.
Because it's not,
It's not a charter commission change, which would be the one you're thinking of if you did through the charter commission process. You can do all of that locally. That's the one that there are advertisements months and months in advance, and it takes years to do.
So often people concentrate on the workings and they forget the little other things that cost money, you know.
Yep.
And then they reach a point where they can't go any further because they don't have any money.
Right.
And I just didn't want this to be one of those places.
Thank you. Finance Committee, want to take a vote on that one before we move on? Article 7 as presented.
Be okay, huh? I'm okay with that. There's nothing.
You guys don't then? Okay.
There's no monitoring.
All right, wonderful. And lastly, we get to general, excuse me, not lastly, second to lastly, general bylaw articles. Article 8 comes in from the Board of Health, and it is seeking to add a section to the existing bylaw. So you'll see that it's adding 1.02.5, .6, and .7. And this is to deal with people that throw trash on the side of the street in a backwood lot, or people that scavenge through the dumpster behind a building or your trash barrel in front of your house. The changes that occurred today that aren't reflected in the text you have, the very bottom of page 5, you'll see 102.6, scavenging of curbside collection material. The original draft had the sentence, upon placement of waste at the curbside, such waste shall become property of the town of Townsend. That doesn't exist any longer because that's not a good idea. That, somebody can put a bag of asbestos out on the side of the street for their trash and that all of a sudden becomes ours. So that line has been stricken, and that comes, ultimately came at the hand of council, but I think just looking at it, that would have jumped out to a lot of folks.
is that the entire section 102.6 is gone?
Nope, just the first sentence.
So I have a question.
Yep.
You know when people have a yard sale? And after they have a yard sale,
Free.
they put out some stuff for free?
That's not trash.
That's not trash.
Well, it's not out curbside necessarily. Well, I guess I've seen a lot of it curbside.
If you live on my street, it's probably on the curb because nobody wants to come into, closer into your house to
Well, it's
to look at
embarrassing kind of to
stuff.
pick the things up too, even if you want it. So the closer it is to your door, the better it is.
Well, no, it's actually, the closer it is to the street,
Oh,
the
that's
more
what-
likely they are to take it, So, and I mean, that's the whole point. You didn't sell it. You don't necessarily want to trash it. If somebody can use it, it's here, put a free sign on
Drag it back
it.
into the house.
Or otherwise, you gotta drag it back in, right?
What I can do, Sue, is I can let Carla know your concern tomorrow. I know that there's a meeting of the Board of Health between now and the town meeting where they're going to take up a couple of different things that they want to think about this a little bit more, and that can be one that, I don't know if Carla was here.
So is this saying that you can't go trash pick?
This is saying you can't scavenge, yes, you can't go down the street and open somebody's trash container and pull the cans out, the recyclables. You can't.
Why would we want to stop that?
It's submitted by the Board of Health. That is a separately elected board, so I would defer to them.
It's gonna be an interesting discussion on town floor
I bet it
then.
will be.
One of the things I didn't like about this law too was it said, it shall be a violation of this section if any person other than an authorized agent of the town acting in the course of their employment or, we have no agents to do that. It sounds like this bylaw is going in place to create a position, and I don't like that either.
There actually could be a case where you would have agents that we can talk about.
The Board of Health agent through Neshoba
Police action.
would be the one.
What?
The Board of Health agent from Neshoba, our agent, would likely be the person assigned by the board for this function, is the way it was explained to me.
All right.
But again,
Is there more salary to that?
I'd ask you to speak to the Board of Health about it.
Good discussion.
This will be an
There are also
interesting,
multiple
this will be an
misspellings,
interesting
and there's
conversation at town meeting
complete
floor, but right now I think we're here to see whether or not these are going to be on the warrant. And where it is another board, I think that we
They
really,
have the right to.
we're just
put it
gonna
on.
say,
Yep.
here it is. FinCom, if there's any financials, I mean, there's some fines here. I don't know if there's even
Did
a...
council review this?
Yes.
So do we put,
And council let it go, huh?
Council's recommendation was to remove the sentence under 102.6 about ownership, and I didn't get yet to say and add on the tail end of it, the version I have on my screen in my office that I'll print off, is to add the enforcement provision that we have in town, non-criminal disposition, because right now, it lays it all out, but doesn't say who's doing it, who has the authority and under what legal authority. So there'd be the standard section that says it would be 21D, non-criminal disposition.
Don't they have to also do something in order to establish the fines?
This bylaw does.
Oh, no, it names the fines, but I mean, don't they have to do something
If they have an account.
else
non-criminal
to be allowed to charge them?
Where's that money?
That's non-criminal disposition. We have a standalone bylaw that's non-criminal disposition. If this got voted into place, that bylaw would have to then add this function and that fine.
Okay.
so does this, does the Board of Selectmen, now us, decide what our stand is on an article submitted by another board?
I've been here very, very short period of time, and it's been done differently each time. So,
Board of Selectmen recommended and FinCom recommended or whatever, or just stay out of it and talk about it on town meeting floor?
I think people, my experience is people look to the Board of Selectmen for the leadership, whether there's support or not of an issue. Sometimes there's deference when it's submitted by an independent elected, and it's stated, instead of the recommendation, it's stated, defer to elected Board of Health. So,
Well, I mean, certainly it's their article, and I understand their concern, and I share their concern. I mean, even in fairly nice areas of town, there are houses that you may go by that have an overstuffed chair sitting out in the front yard that's been there for 6 months, and it's like if they're waiting for the trash pickup to take it, it ain't happening. If you haven't figured that out yet in the 6 months, I don't know. But, I don't want our town looking like there's trash thrown all over people's yards either, so
We don't have that bylaw, huh?
I don't think I'm willing right now at this point to say no, but as it's written, I have some concerns.
And James, where does the money go when they collect the fine?
To them.
no, it becomes general fund.
General fund?
They don't have a...
Yeah, unless it was set up as a revolving fund, which it could be,
Oh, yeah.
but that's a separate town meeting action to do that.
Okay, it was my understanding that they had felt that it went to them, but I thought it's general fund too, but they're elected officials, so I wasn't positive.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Last one.
Well, all right, let's go to the last one, we'll go back to this one.
Last one is coming in from the planning board, and town council's opinion on this one was it is written directly as town council's boilerplate that they're giving to all their communities. This is a temporary moratorium on recreational marijuana establishments. So this would be a zoning bylaw, so it takes a 2/3 vote, but this puts in place until the later of April of 18, or the establishment of regulations locally. A moratorium on any business coming into town and establishing a recreational or commercial, non-medical marijuana facility. So you'll see, if you pick up the Sun or you pick up, any of the local papers, you'll see communities are doing this across the state. It gives you a chance to be more mindful and planful about how and where, if at all, they should be allowed in town. The interesting twist about this is that when the ballot vote took place statewide, if your community voted in favor, which Townsend did, you can't outright ban this type of a business from coming in unless you hold a local referendum on the question and say, we understand that the town voted yes when we thought it would be kind of cool to have it someplace else, but do we want it here? So the town has the ability to say no, but it's not an easy thing to do because the town has already said yes.
So the referendum would at least give us time for planning to work with the community and have
Absolutely.
meetings and talk through where are we at with that.
Well, this is a referendum. What you're talking about is another election.
Right.
Right.
Oh, no,
What
no,
we're talking about, the
this.
moratorium.
The moratorium.
What the moratorium does is ask, there's a lot of opinions on this, but the law as it's been passed says that licenses can be issued as of April, some date in April. And I've gone to a couple meetings on this, and this might not be worth the paper it's going to be printed on, but because there's conflicting language in the laws. The commission is working on this, but a lot of towns have tried to put moratoriums in place to try to put us off until December 31st, and we cannot go any farther than that. We have got to have bylaws in place because we're a yes town. We have said that we want recreational marijuana to be available. So we have to have bylaws in place no later than December 31st, 2018, and we're supposed to have it in place by April, but this is a request of the town to see if we want to have a moratorium to allow the planning board until December 31st to have a town bylaw in place to regulate what that's going to look like. And the town needs to vote at a special town meeting on whether or not we're going to approve the moratorium. And it's been a mixed bag on some of the towns. They're saying no to the moratorium, and that there is some discussion, legal discussion, as to whether or not moratoriums are valid, because there's so much, the law as it's stated right now says by law that a company can come in and ask for a license as of April of either the first, is it the first?
April 1st.
April 1st of 2018, but this is an attempt to give the planning board the opportunity to go until December 31st.
The other thing it's buying
In order
time
to
with.
stop it, we'd have to have another election and have people come out to vote, to have another vote, because we're a yes town. Is the only way we could possibly ban it. We can't ban it as it stands right now.
Permanently,
No.
No, this is just a,
Pause.
This is just a pause.
that's a good way to put it.
To give us
Pause,
an
let's think
opportunity.
about this
Right.
and how, be planful about it.
And is there a particular number? 2/3 vote.
Because it's zoning. The other piece that is at play here is the Cannabis Control Commission was just appointed within the last couple of months. They're doing their listening tours. They may have just finished their listening tours. So the regulations haven't even been promulgated yet. So it does make some sense when you think, how on a local level could we understand how we want to regulate this when the entire framework hasn't even been set up yet on the state? So, questions on that one? Going once, going twice. All right, so that's the entirety of the warrant. So if I understand the select board's vote on the warrant, it is Article 1 as printed, Article 2 is removed, Article 3 with the number being changed to the 44,000, Article 4 as printed, Article 5 as printed, Article 6 at $50,000 for the two $25,000 projects with the recommendation of the Capital Planning Committee. Article 7 as printed. Article 8 as printed.
I don't know that we,
Excuse me.
I think,
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
I don't know that we're sure about how we want to go with 8. If we want to have no opinion, or do we want to,
Well, this is just getting it on the warrant right now, not whether you support it or don't.
but we're not having another meeting.
I don't have a problem with it.
Half hour before.
But we're going to have these print, are you going to print it after we meet and before? No, but we have to print.
Your recommendations.
The recommendation needs to be, so we need to make our recommendations tonight.
On the Board of Health, see, that's what I was going to ask, but I was actually going to go back to Gordy asking about, should we vote on each one of them? And thinking about it from the perspective that you raised, Jim, saying, they look to leadership. I'm perfectly willing to say, let's have the board vote on what our recommendations are for each one of these.
Madam Chairman?
Well, I thought we were just,
But for each one, not just for that one. Because what we said was what we were going to take off and what we were going to change.
do you want us to go back to Article 1?
I'm
I
just
thought we
saying,
just did that.
if that's what we're assuming,
So the first vote, if I could just clarify, was
Yeah.
to leave it on the warrant, take it off. What Sue is, if I'm reading this right, please tell me, is whether we're going to support it or not support it. Is that?
by each article, which is what you asked before.
That's where I think we're getting
Okay.
confused.
All right, so
So our
let's-
first time through was on the warrant or off the warrant. Now Sue's asking,
Okay.
and we don't know if we want to even do that. I'm just saying, so we're on the same page here now, right?
Okay, so,
I thought we were in agreement that, with what Jim had just said, except we're stuck on Article 8.
which they're elected, so your position was it goes on. This
It
isn't you
goes on,
support it or
but
not.
we also, but,
Right. Separate,
okay.
right? So then 9 is the last one, planning board, elected, it goes on. So we now know what the
So
warrant
you
looks
were
like.
just saying what
All right.
goes on and
Right.
what doesn't.
So now going back to
go
Article
back.
1, we'll go through, do you support or Carol, you had?
Do you want to clean this up, because our constable's here to post it, and then
Actually-
vote your recommendations afterwards?
I could actually get the recommendations on it while it's posted, if we just take another couple
Wanna do
minutes.
that way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Article 1, does the select board recommend the finance committee being replenished?
Madam Chairman?
All those in favor?
Madam Chairman, point of order, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Just so we're clear, because I think there may be a vote down the road. It should be recommend, not recommend, or take no position. Correct?
That's fair.
But only because some of these, I think it's important that we do
Okay,
yes or
all
no,
right.
but there may be a couple
Okay, so it's
that we say
recommend-
no position. So it's one of the three choices. Is that, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Recommend, so,
Does that make sense to you?
recommend, not recommend, or take the position.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I thought it'd make it faster.
So replenish the finance committee's reserve. Article 1.
I move that the board recommend Article 1.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, it's recommended.
Okay. Article 3, which will become Article 2. I'll stop saying that. Article 3, at $44,000, does the board recommend the reduction of the police department budget by $44,000?
I move that the board recommend Article
3, which will be 2.
Article 3, which will be 2 on the warrant.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The next article, which is the prior year fiscal bills, does the board recommend?
I recommend that I move that the board recommend the article to pay the past prior year bills.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We recommend.
Excellent. The next is the capital plan article. The first is to appropriate the $250,000 to capital stabilization.
Madam Chair, I move that the board recommend the article to replenish capital stabilization or to supplement capital stabilization.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We recommend Article 5.
Thanks. The next is the actual revision to the capital plan, consistent with the recommendation of the capital planning committee to amend and expend $50,000 to fund $25,000 for the repair replacement and associated costs for the AV equipment, and $25,000 for design, engineering, and replacement of the sidewalks on the town common.
Madam Chair, I move that the board recommend the article from the capital planning request for a total of $50,000.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We recommend Article 6.
Next is the home rule charter, changing the way the Housing Authority is constructed to put in consistency with the state law.
Madam Chair, I move that the board vote to approve the Home Rule Charter Special Act article.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Take no position, Clark.
You're taking no position on the home rule charter?
So we have a 201.
But not negative, just taking no position.
So that'd be, if it was 2-1, it'd be a no.
Thank you.
All right, next is general bylaw, which is the first is the Board of Health, making the amendments as discussed with the removal of the first sentence under section 102.6, which is the waste becoming the property of the town, and adding the references to the non-criminal disposition section of the town bylaws.
I'm leaning toward, I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to not have an opinion,
So no position.
no position on the Board of Health article.
Second.
All those in favor of having no position?
Aye.
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 Unanimous that we have no position.
And lastly, the zoning bylaw article put forth by the planning board for a temporary moratorium on recreational marijuana.
I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the general bylaw change on the moratorium for recreational marijuana.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No position.
Unanimous that we, no position?
No position?
Yes.
No position,
So 201.
recommended.
Correct.
So the question, when we have a vote like that, typically the vote carries. I mean, the motion carries.
Yep.
Okay, you're just recording what the vote was. Okay.
Technically, it's a unanimous vote in favor, because an abstention or a non-consideration has no effect. It's just his statement on record.
Yep.
And the statement is that there's certain things we should take leadership and certain things should be left to the public. And that's what, I'm not saying whether anyone's right or wrong, but I choose to let the public decide on that.
If the board can take a recess, I can go
Yeah.
clean.
Could you vote the other warrant too before we recess, so she can post both of them?
You guys can do that while I go start the...
Okay, we're going to move to 2.1.2. Vote to sign and post the warrant for the state special election to be held on December 5th.
I move that the board approve I don't have it written down.
Just sign and post the warrant for the state.
Okay, to sign and post the warrant for the state special election to be held on December 5th, 2017.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
It's unanimous.
Are we still in session?
Oh, I guess we are.
Yes.
Do you want to vote for recess so that we could...
I move that the board recess for 5 minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Wait, 5-minute recess.
So Carol can get that stuff.
Okay.
Carolyn, did we sign both?
Up to 2.1.1, now that we've got the final document ready to go, to vote to sign and post the warrant for the special town meeting to be held on November 28th.
I move that the board sign and post the warrant for the special town meeting to be held on November 28th, 2017.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, and we'll do that out of session. 2.2, we're missing. some-
She's coming. She was just downstairs.
Okay.
She's for life.
Here she is, right there.
She's going to meet with Barbara Tierney, treasurer, regarding the useful life of capital projects for upcoming bond issuance. Perfect timing. Hi.
Go for it.
So what do we have?
So this is a formality vote for the upcoming bond issuance that I'm doing. There is a portion of the bond that is refunding a multi-purpose capital item purchase ban that we've been carrying on the books for the last 3 years for $430,000, and the items on the vote are the ones that are part of that. So in order to do a actual bond issuance, we just have to do the formality of voting in a useful life for all the items. And I apologize, I ran up the stairs really quickly. Out of breath.
Do we have that, or do we have to just vote?
You should have this in your packet.
Yeah, so this is the vote.
Okay. Sure.
So you just need a motion on this?
Yep, just to vote in the useful life for the various items on the list.
Okay. Madam Chair, I move that the board vote to approve the list from,
The motion's actually written right in the document where it says voted.
oh, I like that. Thank you. I move that that the board approve that the maximum useful life of the departmental equipment listed below to be financed with the proceeds of a portion of the $3,655,000 borrowing and the $729,285 borrowing authorized by the votes of the town passed May 6, 2014, Article 23, respectfully, are hereby determined pursuant to General Law, Chapter 44, Section 7-1, to be as follows, as listed. And that's my motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. It asks for the clerk of the Board of Selectmen to sign it?
Wow.
Yes.
What is today? Thank you.
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
Well, Susanna, can I just bring up one quick thing here? And thank you for all this hard work, Barbara, first of all, before I forget that. The last thing is about 10 things here we gave a life to. The last thing is called the sweeper, the street sweepers that we had here, and they're $185,000. Well, as everyone knows, they're sick of hearing about the SALT program. Well, Ed Kugler told me that double or triple the life of that sweeper since we don't pick up sand anymore. So that's $185,000 that will be not replaced how many years? Twice or 3 times the life. And also not paying $50,000 a year to get rid of sand. And we don't pay to buy sand anymore, except for local use. So I believe over 10 years, the fact that Ed Kugler and now our new acting superintendent is putting this stuff there now, changing from getting rid of sand to a salt program that works better, you don't have to pick up. I totally believe $1 million would be conservative over the next 10 years to save it. Easy. So that's a big deal. It's just by good administration of our department heads and the board supporting them. And the roads have never been safer because, I'm not going to get into it, but that's important to let people know that we're not spending $185,000 because of good management.
And these useful lives are just driven...
Right, exactly.
Derived from general accounting principles.
And
Some of these pieces of equipment will last much longer.
That's right. And I know I'm off the bat, but if we don't educate people about that we're really spending
But
the
these will
money
be
wisely.
written off as far as for accounting purposes. I mean,
Thank you.
4, 5, 13.
I don't mean to get off there, but people just need to know that there's being management decisions made to save them a fortune. So, thank you for that. Thank you, Madam
Am I
Chair.
all set? Or
Free to run.
be downstairs if you need?
Thank you, Barbara.
and in 2.3, we have a joint meeting with the Townsend Housing Authority to appoint Betty Ann Coleman to the Housing Authority as tenant member, and effective November 14th to June 2017 to June 30th. We don't have
them here, but we don't need to have them here.
Right. My understanding is that they had a vote to make the recommendation. I did inquire as to whether or not that vote took place at a meeting that was duly posted. I was advised by the town clerk that it was.
Okay.
In the off chance that it wasn't, something is determined that it wasn't, there's no requirement that the sequencing of this vote be them first, you second, or you together. So your vote this evening would just fit wherever it needs to fit into the process.
And
I'm
Chaz is
representing the
here.
Housing Authority tonight.
Right. And this, when did they vote this, on the 27th?
The 28th,
The 28th of...
our last meeting.
Okay, all right, okay.
So, Madam Chair, I move that the board appoint Betty Ann Coleman to the Housing Authority as tenant member effective November 14th, 2017 to June 30th, 2020.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, it's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Chaz.
And then we have, excuse me, 2.4 is running a little late here. Karen Hill, Conservation Commission for department updates.
I'll sit up front.
Just by a couple minutes.
Since it's all empty up front, I'll sit up here. Okay. Well, the Conservation Commission has been getting busier and busier over the last 3 years, and from 2009 to 2013, there's an average of 12 filings a year. This year, we're on track. We still have a couple months left. We've done 38. So we've more than tripled our amount of work, and our poor little administrative assistant needs 5 extra hours to help us with this. We approved to cut the hours to 15 last year, but we thought that we were experiencing a little hiccup where, we had a busy year. Well, last year we did 23 filings. This year we did 38.
To date.
And to date. So it just goes to show that we're doing more and more filings, so we think we feel we need the additional 5 hours for our administrative assistant. We hope the town can find it in the budget to do so. Given the fact that land use has 2 empty positions right now, there is money in the budget for this year. Whereas next year, we'd have to probably go to a town vote. But it historically has been a 20-hour position.
It's at 15
It's 15 now.
right now.
Truth.
Okay, have you been...
We've talked about it, and I support it wholeheartedly. There are funds available within the existing budget to account for it for this year. It just becomes a budget matter for next year.
Correct.
So you're kind of at the mercy of whatever happens
Yes.
next year, but at least short-term, you're taken care of.
Right.
So are you recommending that
I am
we put
recommending.
that tonight?
Just technically, there's no action technically required of the board, but I think in fairness, the commission wanted to be before you and let you know. It's a position that is not one of the listed positions that's appointed by the select board, so it's a hired position. So we have the ability at a staff level to do this. But again, in fairness, I think transparency, right? That's the word we're supposed to use.
Yes.
Bring it out publicly on television that, number one, that this move is something that is necessary, but more than that, why it's necessary to have, to sit at 38 filings in November is extraordinary.
It really is.
Yes.
I'm going to ask Mr. Kryler a question here, just to maybe enlighten us.
It really scares me when you say
I'm scared.
All right, well, no, it's just that we've worked on a lot of stuff together, and hopefully, he's given me a lot of knowledge, and I might have given him a little bit. This, if I add my math right, 15 plus 5 is 20.
yes, is the answer. No, he was going to ask, does this then trip it into benefits?
Yes.
And it does.
So, well, then that's $28,000, so
It's actually, to address that issue, we have an amount of money budgeted for staff within which we can cover the 5. We have an amount of money budgeted within health insurance because we have lost several people during the fiscal year who were receiving health insurance benefits. So yes, it's not as simple as 5 hours times her hourly rate. It's a significant jump. I still stand behind it because the quality of the work we get from her and the need of the commission.
It's also historically been 20 hours
I'm not trying to,
With benefits.
with benefits.
it's just,
It's just well, we didn't have an agent last year, so, wait, was it last year or the year before? confused anymore. But there was no agent for a whole year, so,
Yeah, it's been a year.
you know, prior to that,
Well, we have the money in the budget to cover
As
all.
Karen said, historically, it's been 20, and we do have the funding sufficient to cover.
Am I, Madam Chairman,
Uh-huh.
am I allowed to ask if the person is in need of health benefits? I'm not. Okay, so we have
But if-
options here.
hypothetically, if they were, we would have it covered.
Okay.
With an existing,
So we have three options, I see, and correct me if I'm wrong. One, to approve it, 5 is 20, and then the benefits, we're not quite, we have a rough idea of what they are. 2, we could approve 4 hours and 3/4, and then that was solved. Or 3, we could, which I sort of like, is to approve it for a period of time until we can put our shoulders around it. I'm in support of it,
Yeah,
all right?
yeah.
I would be more favor of putting it to a time like June 30th, so that we have a more chance to evaluate and to fund it properly at that time down the road.
Well, the funding
I
would
think that
happen in
it
Would
April.
would be an
At town meeting,
annual
but
town meeting event.
but it's all funded to June 30th.
Yeah.
right. Yeah, and I can
That's
say,
all we're funding
in
for.
further,
Yeah, is that what I'm saying? So I think, is that a fair compromise?
But that's all we're doing, eh?
and in furtherance of that, my expectation would be that the budget that I draft and submit to you for your consideration will include it.
Right.
Because it's needed.
Right, but if something happens,
Yeah.
which you have more
Yeah.
experience in, then we're not in a position that we have to...
You wouldn't technically be anyway. I mean, it's a non-union position, which unfortunately, depending on what side of the table you sit on, provides less protection for those types of changes.
And Karen, to you and to the board, I'm 100% supportive. It's just that we've spent so many hours with healthcare and contracts that I'm a little more keenly into this than other people are. And so it's not that I don't want the person to have that, it's just that...
well, there's also people that aren't
That-
using the benefits.
Right, but the benefits
So-
would actually be almost more than her pay.
Yeah.
Well, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
I'm not trying...
Is this a shared position? Is this just for you?
I'm not trying to...
Conservation admin, period.
So I would...
Conservation only?
So there's
Yeah.
2 other votes here, but I would right away absolutely totally support yes to June 30th, all right, and but in April to be solved, and to be funded forever, or not, you know what I'm saying?
Yep. Put it to a
I'm
vote.
not trying to put it any one
No,
of the
that's
other
fine.
ways, and I'm willing to bend, but I'm real comfortable with that.
Let's do it.
Well, I have 2 members.
All right, do I have a motion?
Actually, I think we do. I move that the board approve the,
Not to be a stickler, but could I ask for support instead of approve? The connotation of approve.
yes, I understand, that the board support a move to increase the conservation agent's hours to 20,
It's the admin assistant.
admin assistant position to 20 hours, and that be effective until the end of the fiscal year.
Which is June 30th, 2018. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
I'd also like to let you know that we're planning some big plans for Old Meeting House Park. We're going to have an accessible trail and a bird and butterfly meadow. It's going to be, but when we get it all nailed down, you'll be the first to hear about it.
Madam Chairman, just one last thing, because sometimes people misconstrue, right? I 100% support the employee in getting the benefits. It's just that I have to take the big picture, because when I'm
Yeah.
negotiating, I have to look at all the employees and say, no, I'm treating everyone the same.
No,
So-
we understand it.
Okay, but
I'm-
I want to know that...
Historically, it's been 20 hours with benefits, and,
That's all.
we tried to save the town money, but we're just too busy.
That's all. I just don't want anyone to think that I'm not appreciate what they're doing, because they're working very hard. So
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks, Karen.
All right, so 3.1, appoint, is it Ino?
Eno.
I knew I was going to say it wrong.
To the Flag Committee.
I move that the board appoint Eno Kaupi to the Town Flag Committee effective November 14th, 2017, until, is there a closing date?
There is not. It's one of the few in town that doesn't have a term.
Oh, okay.
Second.
All those in favor?
Attorney.
Aye.
Aye, he has been appointed.
You know I'll last all of us anyway, so...
And there is a meeting briefly of the Flag Committee that's being set within the next week to determine, among other things, when the flags come up out of the cemetery. because remember, we spent the time, a lot of folks working on that issue. How to better address the issue of flags downtown, because what we've got going right now, I don't think anybody's happy with. And some of that discussion went back to what apparently the town did, I don't, Carolyn, how long ago, some period of time ago, where flags actually were put out for shorter periods of time around the respective holidays in the sidewalk. There were actually sleeves in the sidewalk edge had been bored, and larger flags were put up just for the, the ceremony or the weekend, and then removed. In fact, Roger talked about the interest perhaps of doing it around the common, and not necessarily down the streets, but just keep it consistent to the center of town. So there will be a meeting scheduled. Once it's set, it'll be a public meeting, and I'll let you know. So if you have the ability to pop by and offer a comment, I know, Cindy, you've been very interested in this.
Yeah, and I think the cemetery thing, I think it's state, I could be wrong.
December 1.
No, I think state law makes that under the control of the veterans agent. Cemetery.
The placing and removing of the flags?
Because he gets the, gets the flags because of that, I think, but the law he's, and I think we're supposed to actually, we don't have him as appointed as there's some label for that, but his position, I believe, is required to be...
Well, I know he was involved in
right, and
getting them,
always have been,
distributing them, so...
And I know there were some concerns that some graves got missed last year, but I know that we've always done a large contingent of volunteers, so, but I think that, but I don't think that, I could be corrected later, but I think that Joe's position is required to be, I just hate to see somebody take his job away.
Understood.
I'm not trying to say he has to do it.
Understood.
But I don't want to see anybody take his job away, but I think he's required to be responsible for veterans' graves.
Gotcha.
Okay. And now we have 4.1. Discuss vote to close non-essential town offices to the public on November 24th. That's the day after Thanksgiving?
Day after Thanksgiving, and again, if people have time and they choose to use a vacation or personal day, that's great, they can. Those that want to stay and work and get some things done without interruption can choose to do that as well.
Okay, so I move that the board vote to close non-essential town offices to the public on November 24th, 2017.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. It's unanimous.
Want me to just start making motions?
Yes, we've got quite a few of these.
Okay, 4.2, approve and sign the 2018 renewal for a wine and malt restaurant liquor license number 0021RS1286 for Nancy J. Pappas, Patriot Pizza and Subs, Inc. at 24 Main Street, Townsend, Mass., contingent upon a valid certificate of inspection.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4.3, I move that the board approve and sign a 2018 renewal for an all-alcoholic beverages club license number 0005-CL-1286 for Terry Roy, VFW Post 6538, 491A Main Street, Townsend, Mass., contingent upon a valid certificate of inspection.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Madam Chair, for 4.4 and 4.4.1, I am going to recuse myself. Would you please call me back in when that's done?
Absolutely. Mr. Clerk, if you could be just...
So which one is she?
4.4.
Okay. Yep.
4.4 and 4.4.1, if we can do without...
Yep. I make a motion to review, approve, sign the following 2018 renewal applications for a common particular license. Grover Care Incorporated to Ronald Kerwood, 27 Main Street. Dunkin' Donuts, Steve Catalano, 17 Elm Street. Dunkin' Donuts, Frank Catalano, 28 Main Street. Patriot Pizza and Subs, Nancy Pappas, 24 Main Street. Hanover Supermarket, Judy Knapp, 18 Main Street. Gourmet Donuts, Mohammed Alderir, 210 Main Street. Townsend Pizza, Gregory C. Frediani, 237 Main Street. VFW Post 6538, Terry Roy, 491A Main Street. Do I have a second?
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Old habits.
Sorry. 4.41, I'm going to make a motion with Madam Chairman's permission.
Go ahead.
Review, approve, sign the 2018 renewal application for a common particular license for McNabb's Pharmacy, Karen McNabb, noon, 233 Main Street.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Ms. Smart, at this time, could we please invite Clerk Sulizio back in? That was pretty fast. We're at the 4.5 now, Madam Chairman?
4.5.
Okay, 4.5, I move that the board approve and sign a 2018 weekly and Sunday entertainment license number E318 for Terry Roy, VFW Post 6538, 491A Main Street, Townsend, Mass.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
4.6.
I move that the board approve and sign a 2018 Class 1 license for Townsend Sales and Service, Inc., to 340 Main Street, Townsend, Mass.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I move that the board approve and sign a 2018 Class 2 license for Harbor Auto Body, 98 Main Street, Townsend, Mass.
Madam Chair, before moving forward on that, just for the public's benefit, there's currently litigation pending that the proprietor of Harbor Auto Body is involved with. You sit as members of the board in a position to either approve or disapprove a license for the establishment. In order to dispel any even appearance of a conflict, 268A, 23B public disclosures are on file from both Selectman King and Selectman Clark on the matter, which will allow them to proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Crowell.
I already read it, right?
Yep.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We're on 4.8.
Move that the board approve and sign a 2018 Class 3 license for MJS Metals, 60 Turnpike Road, Townsend, Mass.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move that the board approve and sign a road opening permit for Unitil on Turnpike Road as approved by the acting highway superintendent.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Sorry.
And,
4.10.
okay. I move that the board authorize the purchase of the pumper truck in the amount of $489,658 as approved on the FY18 capital plan and voted at the annual town meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
We have discussion first?
Sure.
That's all right with you, Sue?
Absolutely.
Just quickly here is, I took the time today, I had some questions, and Mr. Kryler, with the assistance of our town accountant, walked me through them all, so I'm good with all the things. I had a few things about the state bids and stuff, and he cleared it all up, so I appreciate that. I would ask two things quickly here is, one, that the committee members of the engine tanker committee that we send an official thank you from the board. Do you need a motion or just?
No, that's fine.
But I think that it's a lot of work. That I think there's 8 members here, and because of their time, things like this happen. So I thought it'd be appropriate to mention. And the last thing is, I don't see the document here, and it's not to hold it up, but only because I'm very into details here in bids, is I saw a mention of a warranty with this there, and it wasn't with the package. I don't want to hold it up, but I would just ask that the warranty be added to the package.
Absolutely.
And in the future, whenever we get things like this, I would just ask that the warranty is part, so that it's tight, that we know what we're getting for coverage, okay?
It's part of it's part of the procurement file.
Right.
I apologize, it's not in your packet.
And I don't want to make them stop it at all. It's just that, unfortunately, I drive people nuts with my small little things, I find. So, with that, I think we're ready to vote.
All those in favor? Did we already make the motion?
Yeah, I think we did.
I did.
Yes, you did.
That's we had
All right,
discussion.
okay.
Getting too
We got lost,
fast.
I know.
Unanimous.
Unanimous.
And then additionally, to execute, for the chair to be able to execute the associate paperwork out of session.
Motion's made as read by Mr. Crowler. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chairman Clark.
More to
Sorry.
sign.
I'm trying to help.
I know, we're trying to move this along.
That's what I'm
aren't we?
trying to
I
help,
know.
friend. All right?
We're on overtime now.
Well, he made the motion, so that's...
That's right. Yeah, he moved, yeah, whatever.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
So, next we're on to work session. Town administrator updates and report.
Very, very briefly, 511 bond rating call. At the last meeting, I let you know that we had a call coming up with Moody's. They're the agency that does our bond rating review. For those at home, it's not unlike your credit rating that you have as an individual. The town also has a credit rating. It's called a bond rating. Because we have the borrowing that Barb Tierney was in to talk to you about a little bit earlier tonight, going out, Moody's, as a matter of practice, would come in and review us again. And at the end of the process, which involved submitting answers to questions they had in writing and then having a conference call with the principal assessor, the treasurer collector, the town accountant, and myself, last week, they've affirmed our AA3 bond rating, which the guy was interesting, the analyst was interesting. He said, for a town located where you are, with the handicaps that you have based on that location, that this is, which is the truth, we know.
I know, but...
That's what I'm saying, it was unusual to hear, that, this is a very good thing for the town
Don't say any of the ones that you stepped
to
on.
have and to know about. The other thing that was unusual about the call is, he did say that
I did not vote against.
He did say that there's positive upward pressure on the rating.
I didn't sign any of it.
So
I didn't vote on it.
when he was poked a little bit and asked if that meant this rating we would see a bump, he said no, not this rating. But because we have been steady with keeping our reserves and our fund balance high and growing, so things like the policy we put in place that says we'll put $200,000 into stabilization, those types of things are the things that they're focusing on with us particularly, and the implementation of financial policies that we've done in the last year. So the indication was within the next rating cycle, we could see the increase up to the second to the highest bond rating available, as opposed to worrying out the third to the highest.
Just these two. Great. But I didn't.
Next,
Madam Chairman? Can I say something before the next thing? It won't be bad. Madam Chair, I just want to recognize that increases in bond ratings like this, which save our town an endless amount of money in the future,
She's going to reprint the...
wouldn't be possible without our current accountant, treasurer, Mr. Kryler. And that's part of the reasons I'm proud that we extended his contract, because these things don't happen by accident. Towns don't get to AA3 from a lot lower than that without great management. So I want to thank you, Mr. Crowler, if you can let the town accountant and the tax and the rest of the staff. It's become a real team effort, but I'm proud that we renewed your contract, because these are the reasons why you have a new contract, because our town is on sound financial footing. So you let the whole team, everyone know that.
I will.
And this may, to steal one of Sue's lines, this may not be the politically correct thing to say, but a lot of this financial stuff would have never happened without Carolyn Smart dragging me and educating me along the way, and now you've taken it over. So thank you to everybody who's worked so hard. It's not a small thing to get a rating like this, so I'm done. I told you I wouldn't go too long, but you know, this is the big deal, so congratulations to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, for indulging. Let me go on for a while.
5.12, Melanson Heath Representation Letter. You each received a copy of the representation letter, which is it's the precursor to getting the audited financials and the management letter from our our auditing firm for fiscal 16. So you'll recall, we've been chasing ourselves now since probably mid-15 to get up to speed, and we're now there. So both the treasurer collector and the accountant indicated that we should be on time directly for next year's closing and audit. So the point of having this on there is that the letter is the standard form letter that we're required to submit, executed by myself and the treasurer collector, that says we recognize they've used basic auditing principles that are appropriate for government-associated accounting standards. So we should, at the next meeting, all things considered, have management letter and audited financials for you.
Thank you for that. That's awesome.
And lastly, had a discussion with the folks involved with the cable contract, and they've really been kind of spinning their wheels trying to get between Verizon and Unitil the rewiring that's been guaranteed under the contract that you negotiated for places like Vinton Pond Road. And when Verizon's on the phone, they say it's Unitil. When Unitil, they say it's Verizon.
This has gone on for
This is 20 years.
ages.
It has. It has.
30.
It has. And they've attempted to use a member of Goldman & Page that specializes in cable contracting and cable issues, but they've not had good luck in terms of the communication and the responsiveness. So what they've asked is permission for me to solicit and secure a specialist in cable contracting that is more of a bulldog to get these issues resolved. The additional component of which would be the establishment of the cable access nonprofit.
Well, isn't that, I mean, that was part of our agreement with Comcast?
Yes, it was.
So it's like, why doesn't Comcast fix this?
Because you have joint-owned poles.
He said the poles are too short.
But what I'm saying is, they wanted us to agree
Yes,
to our little separation.
yes.
And we said, yes, if you can do this. Why can't they get somebody to work on it?
I would love for you to come to the next meeting of the Cable Commission when we have Verizon and Unitil there and ask them that very question, because each member of the commission has asked repeatedly, and everybody talks a good game when they're at the table, and then nothing is
So
done.
we've got Verizon, we've got Comcast, Verizon, and Unitil.
Just Verizon and Unitil, because they're the ones that have equipment on the poles, because we don't have Comcast in these areas yet.
Okay.
Okay, how about if we get these people cable, not cable, but internet and TV,
Satellite, and send them the bill?
yes, take it off, I mean, say, okay, you've agreed to do this, we could get, because the technology is available now.
The folks in the neighborhoods have indicated that they've attempted to do that because it's taken so long and that the service is not sufficient in their location for, whether it's HughesNet or any of the other satellite providers.
They can't get anything.
Spotty at best.
Would you let me know when the next meeting is?
Absolutely.
Would the board mind if
That's what I'm trying, well, no, I would like to ask two of you once Cindy tells me all right to speak here.
Speak.
Thank you, Cindy. How about this? This is going on too long. How about we do a joint meeting before one of our regular meetings with these people and give some bite to this? I would drop dead sentence to them or something like that.
Won't take long, half
I'll wait for
hour.
Cindy here.
Well, I'm going to turn to Sue, because she's been through this a couple of times. Was that effective? Is that an effective?
Well, I think the
to have
board's
a
got the
joint meeting?
power if we're all together with it.
Does that make any, is it going to make any difference?
I think the board doing it face-to-face, or the board authorizing a letter be sent saying, we're at the end, we've had enough, you've not lived up to your end of the bargain, would be equally effective. So it's a matter of how you want to use your time. Do you want to do it face-to-face, or do you want to just
If a letter's just as
send the letter?
effective, if, KMP would write this letter for us, or we would do it
Well, I want to get back to what the committee's asked.
Oh, all right.
They've asked for authorization. Only you can hire counsel
Oh,
or delegate that authority. They've asked that I ask you permission to be able to secure this firm out of Boston that does nothing but cable contracting for municipalities.
do we have an estimate?
Yeah, but that's different than what we're talking about.
No, both issues. Compliance with the existing franchise agreement, that they've
Okay.
not lived up to it, and the creation of the nonprofit.
Well, I thought I heard what Gordy was suggesting, if I understood it right, was on the compliance issue, let us meet with them first.
Sure.
All right, and I
I
just...
mean, why pay an attorney to do what?
Right, and I'm not against, because we may need an attorney.
Right.
But what I would like to do is have just a quick meeting, what's not going on, what's our scope of what we need to do here.
Yeah, let's assess
And
this.
then I would want, if we hire a counsel who's competent, I want damages. I want damages.
Well, let's not give away all of our...
No, I want them to
I think
know
we're
that,
getting
because
ahead
guess
of-
what? No, let them know right up front on cable TV. All right? If there's non-compliance, I'm going to seek a legal
I
counsel.
think we're
see if
getting
it's
ahead
damages.
of, I think we're getting ahead of what the question was, that
But there's two
that just
things.
ask
that they
Carol
wanted
Brains
an
has
attorney
something
to
down
do.
here for us, I think.
Okay. I don't think we're ready for number 2 until this first part is straightened out.
I think they're independent of each other. I mean, right now we have Hartley on staff versus what's supposed to be happening, which is working for the nonprofit entity. We've not begun even setting up, the skeletal
Yeah,
part of
I hear
that. So, and I don't want to disagree with Gordy for a bit here, but
Good.
I think having counsel do an assessment before the meeting with you and Unitil and Verizon, I think would be an effective use, more effective use of your time, because then you would have the weight of counsel saying,
Okay.
these are the commitments, these are the laws, our damage is something that can even be considered. I mean, have that. And these folks have been working, I mean,
Right, point taken. So can we put some kind of cap on it and then extend it for more money?
well, there are cable receipts, so it wouldn't be coming out of your legal budget.
All right.
There are cable receipts for it. So again, the commission, you've asked them to do these things, they're just asking for you to give them another tool to do these
And
things.
so I'm trying to speed this up here, I would be in favor of that as long as that they can fund it until they come before us. I would say, that no in debt, that no funds are expended they don't have. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
No, well, I want so everyone understands that. I don't want to
I
get a
just don't
bill
want to
from...
keep, I don't want to keep spinning our wheels and doing something that we're not.
But I take Jim's
Clearly,
point.
What do you
multiple
want for a
boards have got
motion?
nowhere on this.
Motion to authorize the town administrator to secure special counsel for the cable commission.
Move to authorize the town administrator to secure special counsel for the cable commission.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Done.
Need one more.
Hey, man, that's all I have.
Can't sign those, I didn't
Oh,
go.
all right, sorry.
Dunkin'
I just-
Donuts?
That's okay.
You can't send Dunkin' Donuts?
They were part of the victualler list that I did not vote
All
on.
right, we'll keep Karen's
Oh,
all right.
Okay?
All right.
That's okay.
I was just
Carolyn,
thinking
before we
of-
leave tonight, could you
confused
just
us
let us know
too.
that we signed what we need to know so
Okay.
we don't have to chase this?
All right.
Make sure, I
My,
Thank you, Jim.
let's see, now we're on to my update, which I've been trying to get through for weeks, and I think I'm ready to do that. Community response to substance abuse. I want
you
to,
took that off of here.
no.
Yeah, you did.
No, there was another one
There was
about an
another one
intersection.
that
she
got
took
added,
off.
and then I took that one off. The substance abuse has been on there. Townsend has really been really adversely impacted by the substance abuse problem in the country, and New England is right now the worst hit. Massachusetts is pretty badly hit by opiate addiction and deaths, and Townsend is no different. And looking at the numbers, this problem is not happening somewhere else. We're really, our numbers are really high in comparison to other communities in Massachusetts. When I looked at some data on, we've had a heroin problem for quite some time.
How recent is the data that you've found?
It came out within the last month.
Okay.
But looking at, I just want to talk about first that heroin has been a problem in Townsend for quite some time. Going back to 2000, the numbers I'm going to give you are from people presenting to treatment, and when they're asked what their drug actually is, and when they say what drug their primary drug is heroin. In 2000, 36% of people that presented for treatment from Townsend reported that their drug was heroin. That's 17 years ago. In 2005, that had eked up to 43%. In 2010, that dropped to 38%. In 2015, it's up to 58%. And when I look, in front of me, I've got some colorful maps of the state, and it's colored based on how bad compared to other towns that we are in opiate use and deaths and treatment access. And we're not the top, but we're a very significant percentage. And I want to make sure that people in Townsend are aware that this isn't a problem that's happening somewhere else. We have really got to get on top of this. I'm sure many of us have heard on the news in the last weeks that, we're really excited that the death rate in Massachusetts has gone down, that they're anticipating that we're going to have, maybe even a few hundred less deaths than last year in Massachusetts, and which still is around 1,400, I think, of deaths in Massachusetts, which, and really, as much as I'm excited about people not dying, all that tells me is that we've done a really good job of getting Narcan out there. We've got our emergency service providers. We have people that aren't afraid to call 911. We've had some laws changed to make it easier so people aren't arrested if you call 911 for your friend who's overdosed. So people aren't dying, but that does not say a word about the extent of the problem. People are still using opiates. They're still addicted to opiates. We still need to put a lot of emphasis on getting treatment available and letting people know that it is available, and continue to fight politically to open up some doors and get more treatment beds out there. It's been a real focus for me. I really wanted to get this on our website. Now, hopefully by the end of this week, we're going to have, I've done up a page to have a number of resources. It'll be entitled Community Response to Substance Abuse. It will have a link to the page where I just talked about some of that data, which it does give a lot of data, and you can click on different towns and see all kinds of things. It's really interesting to understand the extent of the problem. A number of treatment resource finders will be on there. I've got at least 3, maybe 4, and some information. Massachusetts has got a page that talks about some of the illegal things that the state has done, some laws that have passed that have really changed how people get access to opiates in the first place. Many might not be aware of this, but 75 to 80% of the people that are reporting an addiction to opiates first came in contact with an opiate by a prescription from their doctor, for everything from having your wisdom teeth out to just hurting yourself, sprained ankles. Doctors had been really over-prescribing a lot of opiates, and they're aware of that. The doctors' groups are really working and educating themselves, and they're required now actually to have continuing education on the impact of opiates. They're restricted on how many pills that they can prescribe as well, and they have to report who they're prescribing to, and they're required to look things up. So there's been a lot of work to get doctors on board to help with that. But a lot, there's on the website, they've got the different things that different professions are required to do, and some of the impact that's had. I know many of us, I'm sure that anybody that's watching, or even those of us in the room, we've all been prescribed an opiate from one time or another. I know my first time I was 19, and when I had my wisdom teeth out. And many people will talk about getting them for all kinds, mostly dentists, I think, were probably the biggest prescriber when I've gotten opiates when I was younger. Haven't had them in a long time. They've cut back quite a bit. But they were prescribing hundreds of pills sometimes. But the effort is to reduce that and stop prescribing opiates. There's many other alternative drugs that can be used. And many people are now getting referred to pain clinics as opposed to getting constantly being on the opiates from their physicians. But that's one link that's on this page. There's also going to be a link. North Middlesex Cares and M-Cares, their website isn't apparently working, but they do have a Facebook page that will be on here. And there's a Dr. Ruth Potey, I think it's Potey is how it's...
Potey from Greenfield.
Yep, she's been really out doing a lot of presentations, and I've got a link to her website, which has a number of presentations that are really focused. It seems that she has a really strong focus on getting to parents and kids to address substance abuse before it becomes a real problem, and she's been working on that, but her website is excellent. And there's also Narcan, again, to get to saving lives. Narcan, our police officers are all carrying Narcan, our EMTs are carrying Narcan, and every single person in this town is able to have Narcan. And I highly encourage parents, friends, even if you're not using, if you are using opiates, abusing them or using them, you can get Narcan. It should be at least mostly paid for by insurance. You do not need a prescription. We should all have it available. If anyone suspects anyone and their friends, their family using it, we can save lives by having Narcan available. And that's the only thing that's really saved the lives that have been saved. There's training available monthly up at the Burbank Hospital, and different facilities have Narcan training so that you can learn how to use the injector, and it's really easy. I believe it works just like the EpiPen. It's really easy to use, and it saves lives, and it doesn't hurt. If you're not sure, you won't hurt anybody. But the training's available, and I'm going to have that on this on the website as well, and we'll be adding things as needed. But I just want to just let people know. I hear sometimes of myths and things that are just not true about the opiate problem, and talking about it happening other places, but it is a significant problem in Townsend, and since they've been keeping the data, we lose about 2 people a year to opiate overdose in Townsend, which is about a 17 out of 100. When we're counting deaths, or when we're making statistics about healthcare, we're talking about a rate per 100,000 population, and so at that rate we lose about over 17 people a year per 100,000, but which compares us to some of the larger cities. We're no different than anyone else, and it's a really significant problem right here in Townsend. And I just want everybody to be aware of that and really pay attention. And when there are training opportunities or when there's information out there, please pay attention, and do please get the Narcan training and look at some of the links that'll be on there. So
briefly, Dr. Potey will come out. She would come to this room with this few people, or she would come to the auditorium at the high school full to the rafters to do a presentation. I attended one with my kids at Oakmont, and it's an outstanding, you've seen her website, you've enjoyed it. I think I sent you each a link to that presentation, but one of the things that I found most stunning about her presentation is the mindset that providing a benefit or an intervention to someone who is ODing on an opiate is only enabling. Just the mindset that says that paying for Narcan and saving somebody that's ODing is not a noble effort because they're a drug addict and they chose to do this. And one of the slides that she puts up that I thought was pretty instructive is a guy not unlike myself, perhaps overweight, that eats stuff he shouldn't eat, doesn't exercise. But if I dropped right now having a heart attack, there would be paramedics here, They would treat me, they would get me to cardiac rehab, they would have me on the OR table, and no one would bat an eye. But the issue they're treating is because I was making poor choices in my life. And so if somebody becomes an addict, whether it was because of genetics or there's a whole other debate to have, but let's say it was poor choices, which it isn't necessarily, but if it was, the stigma that comes with that person's poor choice versus my poor choice is a cycle that's got to be broken, because it's systemic that people treat both of those people differently.
We have to treat drug addiction like cardiac problems and provide the same kind of attention and treatment and opportunity to get treatment, and not just look down at people because they caused it. People that have heart attacks, quite often, their lifestyle may put them at risk for the heart attack as well. So, all right.
Madam Chairman? Oh, I'm sorry, so go ahead.
I agree with everything you say. I'm glad you brought that all forward, and I think these discussions do need to take place. NM Cares had the show, the one-man show that Dirt, that I attended. The chief was there, and that was a very powerful thing, I think, for especially the teenagers to hear and to see. He did a wonderful job. So maybe they would be interested in bringing in this person that you speak of too. But I think it needs to be a multi-pronged approach. I mean, I've lost people in my family from opiate overdose. So it happens to everybody. And I don't know, it's cheap. Heroin is cheap, okay? But there's people selling that, and they have no conscience, and they take advantage of the people who have an addiction, who may have started because of a toothache. And I don't like people who take advantage of people who are sick. And I want those people out of our sight. I want it to be more difficult for people in our town to be able to get those drugs. Just like the law is starting to, has started to work with doctors and have databases and all of that. It's how do we prevent this? Well, I want those people that are making money off of these kids, making money off of these young adults that are sick at this point. It's the worst kind of thing that you can do, is to make money off of these people. And I want them off the street. I want them incarcerated. I want them in jail. I want them to pay for what they're doing to people and to their families. And so, yeah, I agree with everything you're saying. I agree with, you got to take care of people, but I want them. I want them all.
All right.
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
I defer to Susan. I just have one quick thing. I don't know if it would be a proposed motion or just an idea, but I would like the thoughts from my two board members here is that I would like the board to empower or ask, or whatever the appropriate thing would be, for Mr. Kryler, with the assistance of our first responders, chiefs, Chief Bailey, and Chief Boynton, to see about bringing that person in and maybe report back to us at the next meeting. I don't know if that would be all right with you two?
That's fine.
Would it be all right just
In consultation with NM Cares, if at all possible.
Right.
Yeah, and you might want to look into another performance of Dirt for the young people,
So
and
if
to
you-
really publicize it well, too.
So if you can come back at the...
Absolutely.
But I just want to let him know that we'll support whatever ideas, that if they could just come back to us at the next meeting and just kickstart it, bring these people in, and education's key, and I always say turn to the professionals. So that's all I have. Thank you both for that.
And I'd also like to know what are we doing to catch these guys that are taking advantage of these sick
But I don't think
people?
that's something to be in public.
Well, I'm not saying in particular, I don't want specifics, for God's sake. I just want to know that we're doing stuff about it. I want to be assured that we're doing stuff about it.
I know periodically, we do see on the news, and even locally, I know Pepperell there was a major drug bust a few months back, and they put in the paper the picture of the weapons and the money and the drugs.
want to see more
Those are
of
the
that.
kind of, the people that I certainly fully
Yeah.
support, who are making a business out of it.
Exactly.
I do, though, want to defend not incarcerating as many people, and with criminal justice reform and with the work that police departments around the country are doing, which started here in Massachusetts, is to not criminalize a lot of people that are using, including some that are even selling in small quantities. Leave that to the police to determine what small quantity is, but that are addicts helping or selling to addicts, and to not, because when we arrest people for possession of their own use, or even if they're sharing between friends, when we arrest people and put them in jail, they need treatment. We don't need to fill our jails with people that are users, that are moving drugs between each other. We need to get them into treatment, and by giving them a criminal record is making their lives even worse. And I know that there are programs with law enforcement and the courts, and we have drug courts now, to try to keep people from getting that criminal record, and helping the police at all levels and courts are trying to get people into treatment before they actually create a criminal record for them. And even if they get a criminal record, that we keep it to a minimum. But I do want the big ones. When I say the big ones,
Even some of the small ones are the ones who break into people's houses and take their heirloom jewelry.
I know that you
crush
had
it
that,
and sell
right.
it.
But
Okay,
that-
so
well-
I have no sympathy for someone who does things like that either.
I mean,
so.
there's things that on a
Yeah,
case by
I agree.
case by case.
You have to look at the
trying
whole thing.
But getting people treatment, and treatment does work. There are treatments that help these people lead a more productive life than a life of crime, and keeping them from getting a criminal record, helps them. People will get into recovery and get help, and really be productive people, and not want to continue that life.
So you know what I think?
That's helpful. But getting them into treatment and making the resources available is the best way that we can do that.
I think that this conversation has been a really good one, and I think we all need the opportunity to vent our frustrations and our concerns like this. So,
So
Yeah.
with that, I would like to move to the next item.
yes.
Which is updates from
The
Sue.
chief is here. Did you want to add anything to that?
Just a couple of things I want to say, and I agree with everything everybody is saying. Although, the facts really show that, and nationally, the trend is leaning towards rehabilitation, education, because the other way, the arresting, we'll still arrest, and if we have a dealer in town, if we have somebody who's selling it, we'll investigate it, as will any police department. But the facts are showing that that is not curbing the problem. The way that we're going about it nationally now is we're bringing in teams of clinicians or outreach workers. If we deal with somebody who in a heroin overdose, we're not just going to send them to the hospital, we're going to introduce them to a co-responder, somebody who can help them, get them into treatment or check on them. Because it's just not working the other way to just arrest them and then put them in the door and send them out again. And that's happening all over the country. We're collaborating with our area police departments to do that. Sadly to say, we had a heroin overdose last week in town, and it's not going to stop. And the way that we've always done it is not working. And I agree with you. Heroin dealers should be arrested finding them is difficult, because a lot of it now is not just the heroin, it's people taking drugs from their relatives or whatever, the opioids that are out there. At NM Cares Vigil last month, I did some research because they asked me to speak, and I don't have the figures in front of me, but I'll be pretty close with it. In Middlesex County, in the first 5 months of this year, there were over 106,000 prescriptions of opioids, with an average of 53 pills per prescription. Do the math. You're very good at it. It's over 5 million pills in that short amount of time in North Middlesex County.
And these are legal prescriptions.
Legal prescriptions,
And-
given for good reasons. And we had National Drug Take Back Day recently, and I spent 4 hours in the police department on Saturday morning, and we took in over 4,000, almost 5,000 pills. I don't know what they all were. We don't count them, and we don't ask what they are. People give them. But as people were bringing them in, we were putting them in a container. I was doing the ballpark on all of them. Unbelievable amount of pills. And that's pills that many people just have in their cabinet because the doctor gives you a bottle of opioids and you say, I'm not going to take those. You put them in your cabinet and you leave them there. When your grandchildren come over, your brother, your sister, your mother, whoever needs them, they're going through there and they're taking them. And that's how a lot of people are getting their drugs. Heroin is also obviously a major issue. So it needs to be attacked from many different angles. And it's not going away.
So drug manufacturers are making money, corporate America is making money. All these people are making money off of sick people. It's deplorable.
That's big pharma generally, though.
Exactly, and I mean, I have a problem with it. I just have a problem with it.
I know that, I know everybody in
So
Townsend,
maybe if we all come at it from a different
Absolutely, everybody bring their
place,
piece.
and I know
you know,
everybody in
we'll make it
Townsend,
happen.
It's multi-pronged.
It's multi-pronged, that's right.
We use this is something we cannot arrest ourselves.
Right.
Arrest out. We can't fix it by arresting everybody.
Not only that.
No, it has to be a combination of many things. And quite honestly, the thing that a lot of people overlook is the impact it has on the police officers that go to those. You never forget going to a death as a police officer. You never do, especially if it's a younger person, or you never forget. You can look back in your career and you can count every one of them and you can see many of their faces. So it's taking a toll on law enforcement.
Even
And it's
more so
not
in a
just young
small
people.
town, where you know people.
Well, you know the people exactly.
I was looking at, I've been looking at all the data, trying to get ready for today and to get my little page going, but just looking at the age, it's not a particular age group. It's not just about the young people. I mean, we do need to address the young people. The biggest group is, say, from age 25 to 40, I think, is the biggest impact. And unfortunately, I mean, they use deaths as the measure. But people are overdosing all the way up to over 65. That age group also is overdosing. And people are getting opiates from their doctors, and they don't want to give them up.
Okay.
And the doctors they just keep prescribing them, and the people don't want to stop taking them. They have chronic pain.
It's so hard for me to even imagine, because I had surgery and the resident, before I could leave, insisted on giving me a prescription. And I said, no, thank you. And
You're rare.
I said, Tylenol's fine, thank you, I'll take that, okay? And he said, oh no, I have to give you some pain medication. I said, no, you don't. I don't want it, I won't fill it, I'll rip it up and throw it at you. It's like, I mean, I know my body, and I know when I need something and when I don't. And I was not in pain to the point where I wanted to take any of his nasty medicine. So I just, I'm grateful that my kids are the same, and I can't even get them to take Tylenol,
I think
you know?
It's hard to understand it when, and I'm like you, I don't like to take pills. I've taken pills because I've had certain things happen, but I was never addicted to them. And that's something you can't control, like, my understanding, in your body. If you have that in your body. I listened to a person talk who was at the top of the world in his career, family, house, and everything. He got in a car accident, and he was prescribed opioids. Within a week, he was addicted. He could not live without it. And when the doctor stopped giving it to him, he started buying heroin. He lost his family, his home, his job, everything. Everything. And this is a person who never lit it in his life. And eventually, after many years, he got out of it, luckily. And you listen to him talking, you just can't imagine that happening to yourself. And I try to look at that because I can't imagine that ever happening to me. If I take a pill, I'm fine, and the next day I'm on my way. But that's not everybody. Sometimes your body just grabs at you. And that's the hard part, I think, to understand and to treat.
Okay. Can address this again in the future.
Please, yes.
Sue, you have another update yourself?
All I wanted to bring up was to the public that we got a report on the bridges in town. And the only reason I wanted to bring it up was if anybody's interested in it, it's public information and it's available, so. Okay.
On that point, the firm that's doing our Tier 2 Complete Streets project brought to my attention earlier last week that there's a grant application round coming up for bridges, and looking at our bridge report, they've identified a couple of potential projects in town that we'll probably try to reach out and see if we can bring some federal money in to do some bridge work, so we'll have an update on that in a
While the
little
getting's
bit.
good.
Yep.
All right, approval of meeting minutes for October 30th.
You want to know if I have any updates?
Oh, well, I'm sorry. It wasn't on here, I'm sorry. Do you have anything?
Just 'cause
I'm sorry.
It's all right.
I'm just going by the agenda at 8:45.
So on announcements, updates, and reports, I wasn't going to get into it, so I'm not going to get into it.
Famous last words.
All right, thank you.
I'm trying to make,
I know you are, I know.
thank you, appreciate it. But on a serious note, I appreciate my two members,
Okay.
Mr. Crowther and the chief, who's always here whether he has something on the agenda or not. Something should be noticed about that. But I throw compliments around like sewer covers, so I'm done with compliments tonight.
Oh, boy.
Thank you,
Okay.
Madam Chairman.
Can I say one thing before you went?
Absolutely.
I started it, and I'll say it again.
Oh, I'm sorry, she's the boss.
If anybody sees our bids and likes them or dislikes them,
That's right.
and wants to donate some money to NM Cares, please do that. Write a check, you can drop it off to them directly or drop it off to us at the police department, we'll get it to them.
So I have a question.
And come December 1st.
If we don't like them, does that mean you guys have to donate to NM Cares?
They already have.
$100 a piece?
Each one of us is donating $100.
That's a lot of money.
Oh, great. All right. Okay, so, meeting minutes of October 30th. Do we have any motion?
I move that we accept the meeting minutes for October 30th, 2017.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move that we review and sign the bills payable warrant out of session.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
No.
All right.
I'm move that we...
Before you adjourn, very quickly, there's a citizen in town that has twice now told me that the video for the October 30th meeting has yet to be put up on YouTube. I reached out to Sam when I got in first thing yesterday morning and thought that it had been put up. When I went to do the warrant, I got another email that said that it's not up yet. So for that person, I apologize that it's not up yet if you're watching, but it will be up first thing tomorrow morning.
Okay, thank you. I got a question on that too, tonight. Move to adjourn at 8:43.
Second.